Metal Gear Solid Delta is out now, and I have quite a few thoughts on this game. So first, I'm just going to get into the positives. The first thing is, this game allows you to access your camos pretty quickly, and this wasn't in the original, and I think it's probably the best change in the whole game. It saves a lot of time and doesn't really interrupt the pacing of the game anywhere near as much as the original did. You also can now move while crouching. It's just a small change, but at the same time, it's pretty big. It allows you to move through tall grass while still being able to see around you and remain well hidden. Now, the overall gameplay is mainly trying to replicate the type of gameplay that was in Metal Gear Solid 5, and some of the aspects of that gameplay do make MGS Delta feel a lot better to play. For example, when using your weapon, you can now see from over the shoulder, and you also can now move around while using it. Some argue that this drastic change in gameplay trivializes the boss fight, and while I don't disagree, I feel that overall this makes the game feel a lot better to play, even if it is easier. And if it helps, there is one change that can be viewed both ways, and that is the tranquilizer. When you fire it, the round now fires at an arc, and arcs pretty quickly. I believe this is one of the ways they compensate for the camera now being over the shoulder, so there can still be some challenge to it, but for me this change still has been both a hit or miss. At times I don't mind it, other times it can be a bit annoying, and if you play with the legacy camera activated, it seems like the arc is not there. Another huge lifesaver for me is that you can now reload your save from the menu. Previously, you just had to let yourself constantly get hit until you see the game over screen. For a lot of perfectionists, such as myself, this small addition saves so much frustration and time for me. But as far as the positives, there isn't really too much to say, and that's mainly because Snake Eater is already a pretty good game. So now there are some things I want to get into that, in my opinion, have contributed to the game pretty negatively. As mentioned, one of the things I was very excited for with this remake was that it looked a lot like they were trying to transfer the MGS5 gameplay over into MGS Delta. The reality is, unfortunately, not as exciting. MGS Delta's gameplay is either downgraded from MGS5, or they decided to re-implement the more annoying parts. Movement in this game feels very stiff. Trying to make hard turns will have Snake doing very wide turns compared to the input register on your controller. And this often leads to you running off cliffs or running into things such as an enemy or getting stuck to a wall, which is super annoying, and it's something I personally would rather have not present in the game. And there's no option to turn off Snake automatically hugging walls when you get close to them. I thought the MGS3 version of this was better than 5 because in 3 you had to actually press and hold the input onto the wall. But in 5, all you have to do is merely get close enough or accidentally run into the wall just slightly, and then Snake will magnetically attach himself to it. It's super, super annoying. I have never liked when games automatically take cover for you. There should be an input to do this, if anything, and that could have been possible if not for this next problem, which is the sneaking. In MGS5, all movement speeds are mapped to the control stick. This allowed the player to sneak up on guards through its use of variable speeds. It's super smooth, it's precise, and it feels good to play. But in MGS Delta, not all the sneaking speeds are mapped to the control stick. In MGS Delta, when you get too close to a guard, you suddenly now have to hold down a totally different input, and that is the left bumper. To this I question, why? We had all the speeds mapped to the same input, but now we're wasting a button that could have been used for something else, such as pressing your back against the wall. It seems strange to have the same function mapped to two different inputs. I think the problem with the execution here is they were trying to improve Metal Gear Solid 3 sneaking and not fully commit to improving or maintaining the already superior and fluid one in Metal Gear Solid 5. In the original MGS3, you have running speed and walking speed mapped to the control stick, but if you want to sneak up on a guard, you suddenly have to move Snake with the directional pad. Two inputs for the same function. This newer version is an improvement from MGS3, but it's most certainly a downgrade from MGS5. And one thing I'm really tired of seeing in video games is the darkening of the screen borders whenever I'm in any type of sneaking mode. This does not make me feel more sneaky, it just makes me feel more nerfed, because not only are the corners of my screen obscured, further nerfing my ability to see, but in this particular game, some of the sound is greatly reduced, such as the music. This modern trend of darkening corners needs to stop, or at the very least there needs to be an option to turn it off. It's annoying. Next is the camera. Unfortunately, they decided to go with MGS5's camera, the one that is so zoomed in on Snake and not really much else. I cannot see what is around me in this game. One of the biggest issues with MGS5 was the camera, especially when indoors. I would run into so many things because I couldn't see where I was going, which would then make noise, which would then cause the AI to investigate it. Metal Gear Solid Delta infuriatingly copies this. I cannot see what's around me because all I can see is either Snake or I'm looking point blank at the wall that Snake has attached himself to. It is insanely hard to see around corners or above objects because most of the screen is focused on seeing Snake, and only Snake. The HD remaster of MGS3 already had a camera mode that is much better than this, and it didn't require you to click the right stick to swap shoulders. Not that swapping shoulders to see around walls was ever that useful in this game since the camera's so close, but it did allow you to see what's around you without Snake taking up half the screen. Clicking the right stick in the HD remaster would switch between the normal third-person view and the classic top-down view on the fly. Can we do that in this game? Well, you can switch the camera view, but not on the fly. You have to reload the checkpoint and be stuck in whatever camera mode you chose. And when it comes to the legacy camera, there are problems in MGS Delta as well. If you switch to the legacy style top-down camera, Snake moves slower both when crouch walking and when crawling. And it doesn't end there. Like in the original MGS3, your camo value changes based on how fast you're moving. That's still in the game and that's great, but in MGS Delta, it's not tied to speed, it's tied to the degree at which you are tilting the control stick, and since your max speed is slower in the legacy camera, this means you'll be getting the reduced camo value while crawling below the max speed, which is not supposed to happen. Check how I'm moving the control stick to 2 different degrees. I'm not moving any faster the more I push the control stick, however my camo value still decreases when I push the control stick all the way in one direction. The legacy camera is also meant to change your control scheme to the old one, but it doesn't quite do that. It only changes around a few of the inputs such as crouching or interact, but aiming and firing are still mapped to the modern inputs. The game also doesn't save this camera mode if you didn't originally enter the area with it turned on, so if you swapped it after entering an area, decided to then reload, it would reload your save back into the previous camera mode. Now, a lot of people might try to say that I'm nitpicking, and fair enough, but I really care a lot about the technicalities in video games, and this remake doesn't do a very good job with it. I was very excited when I saw the gameplay for this game because it looked a lot like MGS5, but it seems all they did was copy the bad stuff from MGS5, like the terrible camera, and none of the good stuff, like having all the sneaking speeds being mapped to the control stick. At the end of the day, this is still Snake Eater, it's a good game, but it's just been very disappointing with how they decided to do things. Things they already had the blueprint for and somehow made it come out worse. If they had just kept the regular camera where it's zoomed out enough, we wouldn't need to have the right stick mapped to swap in shoulder because we would already be able to see over both of them. If they didn't have your sneaking mapped to 2 different inputs, we could have L1 mapped to pressing your back against the wall instead of magnetically being dragged onto the wall the moment you briefly touch it. I just don't know why they copied a lot of the bad stuff from MGS5 and got rid of the good stuff it did, or how this game still has problems with being stun locked by bosses. There are just a ton of baffling decisions made in this remake that severely hinder its quality. Again, it's a good game, but there are numerous missed opportunities to make it better. Overall, I've had both fun and a ton of frustration playing this game. It's not a bad game, like I said, but it certainly could have been far better than what it is now. But those are my thoughts. That's it. Bye.